I thought I'd begin today with a nice story about Prince Harry and Meghan in Australia. And what strikes me first about Harry and Meghan is not the sneer of the columnists nor the muttering of those who say this is all cosplay, faux royalty, branding, monetization, or nostalgia. It is the picture. Politics lives by optics. Monarchy lives by optics. Celebrity lives by optics. And on day one in Australia, the optics were plain. They arrived in Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital and were greeted by large, warm crowds. Staff, parents, family, well-wishers lined the walkways, and even hostile coverage conceded the size of the reception and the positive atmosphere on the ground. Reuters described a petition against policing costs and a mixed public debate. Yet the same reporting still recorded their hospital visit and the attention they drew. The Guardian likewise noted their warm reception at the hospital, even while stressing the commercial side of the trip. The Telegraph, from a paper seldom accused of softness towards the Sussexes, said the crowd was as big as the reporter had seen on such an engagement and judged the first day's public reception overwhelmingly positive. That matters because monarchy is not merely a constitution in costume. Monarchy is theatre. It is presence, poise, mood, symbolism, and the strange ability to make strangers gather in the rain for a glimpse of a family that they do not know. And on that test, Harry and Meghan still possess something potent. They have what public life craves and institutions rarely manufacture at will: recognisability, emotional pull, and crowd energy. And their Australia visit, though private and controversial, still generated the old scenes, the handshakes, the hugs, the photographs, the cheering faces, people craning for a look, people smiling, patients smiling, cameras flashing. Those are not trivial things. Those are the currency of royal relevance. And the British press often prefers a morality play in which Harry and Meghan threw everything away and now wander the earth selling fragments of their lost grandeur, like peddlers. But Australia suggests a harsher truth for the institution they left behind. The Sussexes still know how to do the job, or at least the visible part of the job. Harry looked at ease with veterans and mental health campaigners. Meghan moved easily through hospital wards and a women's shelter. Their programme, children's health, veterans, domestic violence support, mental health, community well-being, was tightly aligned with the causes they have long tried to make their own. Even critics who disliked the commercial packaging still had to admit the subjects chosen were familiar, focused, and highly legible to the public, and that is where the loss to the royal family, I think, becomes visible. The monarchy didn't part company with two dull, dutiful non-entities. They parted company with two people who generate attention at scale, especially when placed in emotionally charged settings. Harry still carries the mix of military background, vulnerability, mischief, and approachability that makes him effective in veteran and mental health spaces. Meghan still carries glamour, camera sense, and a manner of directness with members of the public that produces strong images. One need not romanticize them to see this. One need not. One need only look at the photographs and the reception. This is not the prince and the showgirl. This is reality. The deeper irony is this: the critics accuse them of trading on royal aura. That is true to a degree, yet the very fact that the aura still works tells us something important. The institution did not extinguish their public magnetism, it exported it. In effect, the royal family helped create a globally marketable pair, then lost control of the product. So now, whenever Harry and Meghan step into a hospital, a veterans venue, or a public welfare setting overseas, they receive and they revive a question but Buckingham Palace would rather avoid. What would this have looked like if the rupture had never happened? What goodwill, what reach, what generational renewal was thrown away? The Telegraph framed the tour in precisely those terms, arguing that whatever palace insiders say in private, they will be watching closely because the pair still look like an asset that was lost and that could still, even now, be regained. Now, to be fair, the picture is not one-sided. There is serious resentment in parts of Australia. Reuters reported a petition with more than 45,000 signatures over taxpayer-funded policing. The Guardian highlighted the expensive retreat Meghan is due to headline, with tickets running into the thousands of Australian dollars, while Harry has a paid speaking slot at a summit on workplace mental health. Critics argue that this blurs charity, commerce and celebrity in a manner that feels awkward, especially during a difficult economic climate. That criticism is not invented, it is real, and it bites because the Sussexes insist on occupying two stages at the same time: benevolent public figures and private entrepreneurs. But even here, the optics are more complicated than their enemies admit. The commercial side of the trip has generated criticism, yes, yet it has not erased the crowd shots, nor the evident ease with which the pair still perform public sympathy. In other words, the negative framing did not prevent the positive imagery. That is politically significant, isn't it? We live in an age in which opinion pages roar one thing and public attention flows somewhere else. The anti-Sussex commentary said Australia was weary of them, embarrassed by them, hostile to them, and then the doors opened and there were cheers, selfies, flowers, children, veteran families, and lines of people eager to see them. That doesn't prove universal popularity. It does prove that the case against them is overstated when translated into visual public reality. And there's also a cultural point here about Australia itself. Australia has always had an ambivalent but lively relationship with monarchy. It is both respectful and irreverent. It values informality, warmth, and star quality. Harry has long travelled well there because he fits part of the national temperament: relaxed, jocular, military linked, less stiff than the ceremonial core of the House of Windsor. Meghan too brings a form of celebrity modernity that some dislike but many instantly understand. So when hostile voices ask who even wants this visit, the answer is visible in the crowd barriers. Plenty of people do. Some come out of admiration, some come from curiosity, some for spectacle, some because fame itself is a magnet. For optics, motive hardly matters. The camera doesn't ask whether the person cheering is a monarchist, a Republican, a fan, or a rubbernecker. The camera remains there to record turnout. And this is why the British press so often sounds divided in tone but united in anxiety. One part denounces them as grifters, another part often begrudgingly admits that they still have the touch. And that second admission is the most interesting, the more revealing one. If a couple described as washed up, polarising, commercially compromised, and institutionally marginal still pull this level of attention in Australia, then the monarchy's problem is not Harry and Meghan's irrelevance. The monarchy's problem is that they are not irrelevant enough. They remain vivid proof that the House of Windsor failed to hold together one of its few genuinely global, cross-market, younger, emotionally legible pairings. I think there's another layer too. Harry and Meghan embody a contradiction that the royal family struggles with in the modern media age. The monarchy wants glamour without chaos, charisma without independence, global reach without private ambition, intimacy without confession, and youth appeal without any challenge to hierarchy. Harry and Meghan were never likely to fit that model for long. They were far too famous, too media fluent, too emotionally messy, too modern in instinct, too aware of their own market value, yet those same traits are exactly what make them arresting in public. The very qualities that made them difficult for the institution are the qualities that produce crowd heat abroad. That is why their existence is such a standing irritation to the palace imagination. They are both a warning and a missed opportunity. And the parallels, I think, with Prince Rainier and Grace Kelly would be hard to avoid. And for some reason, the modern media doesn't seem to have drawn on those parallels. Grace Kelly was increasingly proving a problem for the Hollywood system, and her marriage seemed a solution. That was a marriage that worked very well until the appalling car crash. But and I remember vividly how Princess Grace came to London and supported the very young Diana, Princess of Wales. And Harry in particular carries a pathos that amplifies the whole spectacle. He is not a minor celebrity who happened to marry well. He is a prince raised for public service, visibly fluent in ceremonial interaction and deeply associated with causes such as veterans and mental health. When he is seen in those settings, many people do not read him as an imposter. They read him as someone doing the work he was trained for, he was born for, outside the structure that was meant to contain him. That creates a strange effect. The crowd is not seeing celebrity, the crowd is seeing displaced royalty. And displaced royalty is often more fascinating than settled royalty because it carries drama, grievance, and unfinished business. So the conclusion of the Australia optics, at least so far, is not at all criticism, and indeed is the criticism that might exist is false. The criticism of the British press is false. Some of it is justified, I know. The paid retreats, the summit stages that invite mockery, the security question is politically awkward. There is a difference between being admired and being indulged. There is a difference between a crowd and a national consensus, yet none of that alters the central visual fact. Harry and Meghan remain a star attraction. They still draw, they still produce the sort of public scenes upon which royal mystique has always depended. The British press may wring its hands over what they have become, and palace loyalists may insist the institution is better off without them, but the pictures from Australia suggest another verdict. The royal family did not shed dead weight. It pushed aside two of the most camera-ready, emotionally marketable, internationally resonant figures, and the world still notices when they walk into a room. In the end, that must be the real sting. Not that Harry and Meghan have left, not even that they complain. It is that outside the palace gates, before hospital patients, veterans, families, shelter residents, and waiting crowds, they still look like what the monarchy claims to embody: public interest, human contact, symbolic sparkle. And for an institution built on image, that is not a minor embarrassment, it is the whole argument.
We are diving into a powerful, eye-opening discussion that has the haters shaking in their boots. We are breaking down how an intellectual like Professor Tim Wilson was left absolutely shocked by what he witnessed during Prince Harry and Meghan's Australia power move. For years, the British tabloids, the Daily Mail, the Sun, you know who they are, have pushed a single desperate agenda: that Harry and Meghan are finished. They told you they were washed up, irrelevant, and that the world had moved on. Well, Australia happened, and facts are facts. The visual evidence coming out of Australia didn't just contradict the critical narrative, it destroyed it. It proved that Harry and Meghan are not just doing okay outside the gilded cage, they are thriving. They have moved from being labelled spare to being globally recognised superstars. Let's get into why this Australia visit was such a massive blow to Buckingham Palace and why their critics are completely lost for words. Let's cut through the noise of the columnists and the muttering haters who dismiss everything the Sussexes do as cosplay or branding. In the real world, politics, celebrity and, yes, monarchy live by one thing: optics. And on day one in Australia, the optics were plain for the entire world to see. They arrived at Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital and were greeted not by protesters but by massive, warm, cheering crowds. Staff, parents, patients, they lined the walkways just to catch a glimpse of this power couple. Even the most hostile coverage, press that seldom gets accused of softness toward Harry and Meghan, had to concede that the reception was overwhelmingly positive. They noted that the crowds were as big as anything seen for a royal engagement. Think about that. Monarchy isn't just a constitution, it's theatre. It is poise, mood, symbolism, and that rare ability to make strangers stand in the rain just for a glimpse. On that test, Harry and Meghan didn't just pass, they aced it. They still possess something potent, something that institutions cannot just manufacture at will. Recognizability, emotional pull, and crowd energy. While the haters were writing obituaries for their relevance, the cameras were flashing. People were craning for a look, and children were smiling. Those are not trivial things. That is the currency of relevance, and the Sussexes have the bank. The British press loves to create this morality play. They want you to believe Harry and Meghan threw everything away and are now wandering the earth like peddlers selling fragments of their lost grandeur. But Australia suggests a much harsher truth for the institution they left behind. The truth is, the Sussexes still know how to do the job. In fact, they might do it better than anyone else remaining in the firm. Look at Harry. He looked at ease, genuinely connected with veterans and mental health campaigners. Look at Meghan. She moved naturally through hospital wards and a women's shelter. Their programme was tight, focused on children's health, veterans, domestic violence, and community well-being. These are causes they have championed for years. Even critics who disliked the commercial aspect of the trip had to admit the subjects chosen were focused and highly intelligible to the public. They didn't just show up, they showed up with purpose. And this is where the loss to the royal family becomes undeniable. The monarchy didn't part company with two dull, dutiful non-entities. They parted company with two rare individuals who generate attention at scale, especially in emotionally charged settings. You cannot just replace that. Harry carries that unique mix of military background, vulnerability, and approachability. Meghan brings charisma, camera sense, and a manner of directness with the public that produces strong, iconic images. You don't need to romanticize them to see this. You just need to have eyes. This isn't the prince and the showgirl, as some condescending critics claim. This is reality. The real sting for Buckingham Palace isn't that they left. It's that the world still notices when they walk into a room. Now, of course, the anti-Sussex rota was in overdrive trying to find a negative angle. They pointed to a petition regarding policing costs in Australia. They highlighted high ticket prices for an event Meghan headlined or a mental health summit where Harry spoke. They tried to frame this as blurring the lines between charity and commerce. Critics argue this feels awkward in a difficult economic climate. But let's ask the real question. Why can't they be allowed to earn money without this manufactured outrage? King Charles III reportedly told Harry he had no financial support for them. They receive no taxpayer money from the UK. They have bills to pay just like every private citizen. They have kids to raise, and, thanks to the hatred whipped up by British tabloids, they have massive security costs. They chose independence. They chose a modern way to earn a living while still supporting the charities they care about. The Duchess's event even donated money to charity. Yet the evil minions, hiding under the protection of a free press, attack her for it. It is the worst display of continued hatred against people most of them have never met. The British tabloids have weaponized the freedom of the press into a cudgel to beat down those who refuse to bow to an outdated system. They are terrified because their monopoly on the narrative is crumbling. Social media gives us an alternative platform for truth-telling. A window where ordinary people can see what we witness with our own eyes, not what they tell us to believe. Despite all the noise from the opinion pages, public attention flowed somewhere else entirely. The anti-Sussex commentary told us Australia was weary of them, embarrassed by them, and hostile. And then the doors opened, and there were cheers, selfies, flowers, and lines of eager people. Now, does this prove universal popularity? No, but it absolutely proves that the case against them is grossly overstated by the media. The Sussex effect is very real. Harry fits the Australian national temperament, relaxed, military-linked, less stiff than the ceremonial core of the House of Windsor. Meghan brings a form of celebrity modernity that some dislike, but many instantly understand and gravitate toward. So when those hostile voices ask, who even wants this visit? The answer is written plain on the faces in the crowds. The camera remains there to record the turnout, and the turnout was massive. This is why the British press sounds so divided, bordering on anxious. One part wants to denounce them as grifters, while another part, often begrudgingly, admits they still have the touch. That admission is the most revealing part of this whole saga. If a couple described as washed up and institutionally marginal can still pull this level of attention and adoration in a country like Australia, then the monarchy has a massive problem. The problem for the monarchy is not Harry and Meghan's irrelevance. The problem is that they are not irrelevant enough to be forgotten. They remain vivid, walking proof that the House of Windsor failed to hold together one of its few genuinely global, cross-market, younger and emotionally legible pairings. The institution wants glamour without chaos, charisma without independence, and youth appeal without any challenge to hierarchy. Harry and Meghan were never going to fit that stale model. They were too media-fluent, too aware of their own market value, and frankly, too modern. Yet those same traits are exactly what make them arresting in public. The very qualities that made them difficult for the institution are the qualities that produce crowd heat abroad. There's a powerful parallel here with Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly was proving to be a problem for the Hollywood system before her marriage. In Harry's case, he is not some minor celebrity who married well. He is a prince raised for public service, deeply associated with major causes. When the crowd sees him, they don't see an imposter. They see displaced royalty. And displaced royalty is often more fascinating because it carries drama, grievance, and unfinished business. When you talk about who is losing in this scenario, we have to talk about Prince William. I truly believe that in this entire mess, William is the one who lost the most. He genuinely thought that by playing the villain, by taking an adversarial approach to his own brother, he would somehow emerge stronger, more popular, and more king-like. But he has made a catastrophic strategic blunder. He is forgetting that when the older generation is gone, when Charles is no longer here, and all those ceremonial protections fade, it will be him and his children bearing the full brunt of public scrutiny. He and Charles thought they were protecting the institution by pushing out the competition, but they may have instead signed its slow death warrant. History will not look upon this kindly. Future generations will judge current leadership for mishandling the Sussex situation, for allowing pride, envy, and outdated protocols to drive away the very people who could have secured the monarchy's relevance in the modern age. William had allies in Harry and Meghan, but he chose rivalry. He diminished his own future prospects because he underestimated what people actually want from their royals in the modern era. People don't just want ceremony, they want connection. They want authenticity. You cannot manufacture the genuine care that Harry and Meghan bring. William could never replicate what the Sussexes have naturally. The institution had the blueprint for survival handed to them on a silver platter, and they threw it away because it made them feel inadequate. Let's be real. Facts are facts. Prince Harry is a royal baby born and bred. He is a global figure, a veteran, and the son of the unforgettable Princess Diana. A legacy like that cannot be erased, and the world has not ignored it. And Meghan Sussex is a globally known, successful actress who built her own identity long before royalty. No scandals, no crimes, just impact, purpose, and compassion. Together, they are lifting people up, visiting children, battling cancer, supporting refugees, and shining a light on grassroots charities. While the tabloids are stuck pushing outdated tiara stories from nearly a decade ago to distract you, the Sussexes are out here doing the work. Crowds don't lie, love doesn't lie, impact doesn't lie. And maybe that's what makes the institution so uncomfortable. You can't fake compassion, and you definitely can't silence a couple that continues to shine this brightly, no matter how loud the noise gets. The royal family did not shed dead weight. It pushed aside two of the most camera-ready, emotionally marketable, internationally resonant figures it had. Outside the palace gates, before hospital patients, veterans, families and waiting crowds, Harry and Meghan still look like what the monarchy claims to embody. Public interest, human contact, symbolic sparkle. For an institution built on image, that is not a minor embarrassment. It is the whole argument. What do you think of the incredible energy surrounding Harry and Meghan in Australia? Do you agree that Buckingham Palace threw away their best assets? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read all of them. And before you go, please show your support for this channel and for the Sussexes by hitting that subscribe button, turning on notifications and giving this video a big thumbs up. It really helps us fight the anti-Sussex bias in the media. Stay strong, stay legendary, and I'll see you in the next one.